question, still one more question regarding Chocolat, and I was discussing it with Joe about the cinematographic language of the scenes. A lot of scenes are wordless. Lots of emotions, lots of glimpses, lots of whispers, lots of which add a cold atmosphere, coldness to the whole scene of parting and leaving and solitude. It's pleasant though.
I think there is one scene maybe that is like a symbol, if I can call it a symbol. It's not a symbol. It's a sketch. It can, in that scene, you can. It's like a resume of the process of the film. Is when
the dance.
No, it's the dance is something that does not. It's not a resume of the film. It's when he comes back drunk, and she's working in her room. Mm-hmm. So she's working, but she hears the sound. So she's happy because he's back home.
She smiles.
She can hear also that he's working unsteadily. So she knows he has been drinking a little bit too much. But she go on working, not to be like a wife coming, oh, you've been drinking again, no, she's just... But he is going to his room slowly, undress quietly, and come back to the kitchen and stop by the room, watch her, sees that she's working without paying attention to him, and he feels good because she's working, she's safe, everything is all right. In fact, that both are watching on each other, and then goes to the kitchen, quietly take a little glass of rum, and she comes now, like the wife. I think you're a little bit drunk tonight, Suddenly, this perfect, this sort of perfect, discreet survey of each other could not last very long. And there is not one word. I think it was fun to shoot. Because there is no word, just looks. And it's very funny to... Because you feel it's express something that is not extraordinary. It's not like walking to the moon, it's just an ordinary feeling of, he's back safely, because when he's drunk and on his motorbike, she might be worried, blah, blah, blah.
When I saw this movie, when it was released back in 2009, after watching this movie, I was interested in reading a lot of reviews on it, and because of that, I saw Couscous of Abdul Latif Kashish, and then I read in the reviews a lot of parallelism between the train driver and the fisherman there, between the family ties and extreme intimate family ties between father and daughter, vis-a-vis the fisherman's family life with his daughter, sons, and wife all together. How would you address that?
But me, I was not aware there was I liked the film, and yet I was not aware that there could be a parallel, because for me, the couscous was not called couscous in French.
It's le grain et le mulet.
La graine et le mulet. Ouais. La graine, it's couscous, and mulet, it's the name of the fish. The situation of family from Algerian origin in Marseille is precarious. and maybe still needs his own exotism. Like in the 20s or in the 30s, the Caribbean people, there was nightclub called Le Bal Nègre in Paris, Josephine Baker, you know, things that were really Creole. Now I think this sort of exotism in the Caribbean culture is gone. And it's gone also for bad reason. Because sometimes Caribbean will dislike the people from Maghreb, you know, because they said, we have been slaved, we have paid 300 years, so we have a right to be treated better, you know. You know, there is, if you go in the suburb, there might be fights against gang of third generation of young Algerian or Moroccan, and together with African and the Caribbean, the Creole, who don't want to be part of that. We belong. That's what they mean. Although they know they don't. They don't, because the color of their skin immediately present them as alien, whatever. Also, if you take the subway in Paris, blonde people are not the majority. If I can.
The fact that there are a lot of black characters and only a few white men, is it also to imply that the European landscape is changing?
This part of Paris, the north,
Yeah.
where this train is called RER B is going north. It's the one you can take to go to Roissy, if you take a plane. If you take it at evening or early morning, the time when the people go or come back for work, you won't see a white person. I guarantee.
It's a different schedule. Claire, would you talk about your relationship with your cinematographer, with Agnes
Godard.
Agnes Godard, sorry, Agnes Godard, in terms of how you communicate and how much you let her do what she wants to do, how much you control the image?
Well, we've been working since the very beginning. Yeah. And when I made my first film, I wanted her to be director of photography, but the producers, they said to me, not only it's your first film, not only you're going to shoot in Africa, now you want a director of photography that is a woman? No, this is too much for us. So she was only a camera woman.
So you had a separate DOP for that shoot when she was the camera operator?
Yeah. Yeah, they could not trust two women in charge of... But Agnès and I, we don't need to communicate a lot. After reading the script, I tell her, writing the script, what is interesting when writing the script is that there is already a feeling of what I expect to show, because there is a way to build a sentence. You already realize that the room of the daughter and the room of the father is far apart, and it might be dark if you don't switch on the light, blah 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 blah. This sort of when he takes a shower, it's not near her and everything. So this kind of thing is already in a script. Therefore, someone reading the script will understand there might be a corridor, that there might be a need not for an apartment where everyone is close in a close-up, but when you can feel a distance. Therefore, let's say it describes a lens. It means that the lens will be a 40 or a 50, and certainly not 100. And because it's not funny or not Clockwork Orange by Kubrick, it's not going to be a 20 so that the space is spheric, you know. It's going to be a very normal lens, a quiet lens with normal distance, allowing us to show that when he walks away in the corridor, he puts a distance between her and him. Because if you do that with 100 millimeter, you have a blur, but he doesn't know the distance between her and him.
You didn't want the compression of space.
No. No. So these things are in the script so we can discuss. Yeah. On 35 shots of Rome, the discussion was, we had made before The Intruder using scope for the first time, and I told Agnès, apartment and the space where the guy is driving the train, all this, I think, in this city, I think no, scope has no reason to be there, you know. And I thought the normal 35 would be enough. I mean, and I think tracks of a train, if you want this feeling of hypnotism, and also that they leave the frame fast on the side, you know, as if you were driving a train, goes only, that won't go with a scope. So the question we asked each other was, maybe this is a moment for us to start HD camera and not to use film, because I think it was really a film in the city, no nature, no trees, no forest, no big landscape that sometimes are more difficult to time and capture with HD. I mean, I think today HD is completely on top for city lights, city atmosphere, huh? Maybe traveling in the Intruder to the South Pacific, it was great to do it with Kodak, I think, you know, because you could feel the film was cold in the snow, hot in the South Pacific, you know, the feeling that that there is a chemical reaction is important sometimes. But there in the city I thought, well, let's do all our tests with HD and choose which one. So we start testing in trains, that's why we met many train drivers, and day and night. And then one day I tell Agnès, why don't we test both? Just because it's the first time we will be shooting in HD, let's test both in the same condition, same night, so that we can really know what is the difference for us in a city with city lights, in a train. So we had 2 cameras, and we were shooting the exact with 2 cameras. And that very year, or very summer, I guess, they released a new Kodak 500 ASR that was easy to push 800 ASR. So we test with that, and the result was that the balance between the black skin of Alex, of the daughter of other driver, city lights, and the neon light inside the train was easier, almost perfect immediately with the new Kodak. With the HD, when we were balancing for the electric lights, the highlights, the traffic lights and everything, the brownish color of Alex was a little bit grayish. So then I realized it means we had to time completely in digital, and I had not enough money for that. So we did it on film, and what we spend with film, we did not spend in timing. That's it. And we used a small 8 camera, so it was not big.
What's scope?
Scope, cinemascope.
Film.
You know, you have in cinema you have it's not the format, it's the window of screening has to correspond to the obturateur, I don't know how to say that. So in the beginning, cinema was almost square, the image, almost square. It's called 1.37. It's not completely square, but almost a square. Huh?
4:3.
This is one diagonal. Then you have, that's, I'm speaking of 35 millimeters. Huh? Then you have something that become let's say just before the war, just after the war, with color and sound, and it was the 1.66, slightly rectangular. And then with 70, then with Technicolor, in America they invent a huge 70 millimeter image, and you had even a bigger image that was using less, because if you increase this, then you miss a little bit more. You have more black here, more black here, because it's the more narrow it is, the more rectangularity, the more you lose stock. And then scope, cinemascope, could be made on 35 or 70 millimeters. Now it's like a dinosaur, you know, huge cameras. It's a special lens who will to make it more narrow. So a guy will be very long and slim, you know.
It squeezes it.
Yeah. And this is the lens who is doing that. And when you develop, you put another lens that reopen it. So instead of having very narrow figure, you have a very large image that is called cinemascope. But of course, the process of cinemascope means special lenses that are very heavy, and because they are very heavy and they how would you say in English? They squeeze the space, you know. I mean, not the space, but they
It's
reduce.
like it compresses it.
They compress the image, and then after you use another lens when you screen the film too. It's costly, and also those lenses are very sophisticated, and they don't open, if you know what a lens is, they don't open much. So you have to add a lot of light, which today we don't. So there is also something that you can do now with 35. It's called cinemascope also, but it is not cinemascope, it's fake cinemascope. You have on 35 millimeter, but this is called, the rate is 2, it's the double. So if you use what you call super 35 millimeter, like there is still super 16, but super 16 was 16 millimeter, you blow in the lab and you get 35. But when you blow the super 16, I did Nenette and Boni in super 16. When you blow, you can get a great quality for close-up, but there is a slight blur if you do a very distant shot, you know, because the depth of field is not as accurate as in 35. So if you use super 35, you might this is the perforation. Normally, an image, a frame, is 4 perforation. This is the normal rate. And then you have a little black here. And then again 4 perforation, another image. And this row. So Super 35, you can use only 3 perforations. So now you understand that the image is more narrow. Huh? And of course you lose stock. Huh? Here. A little bit, you know. And when you screen the film, you can process it so that you blow it, because you cannot screen it with 3 perforation. You have to blow it back to 4 perforation, and it becomes a fake scope. It's not made with the lens, it's the use of the film stock itself. Is it interesting?
Yeah.
Don't worry.
It is really great.
No, it's really good.
So did you do that?
L'intrus, super certified, yeah, because
Okay.
you can do real scope today, but not traveling.
But that allowed you to have a wider aperture and work with more natural light.
Yeah, and also lighter equipment.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
because the equipment for scope is, of course, not handheld, you need a lot of light. For one reason, very interesting, those lenses of scope, they could give you what you see in American movies, Hitchcock or in scope, Western. It flattens the depth of field, real scope. Huh? So therefore you could have a character here, profile, very sharp. Then you could have a guy standing here with his gun, sharp also. They glance at each other. And here you can have a part of a house, sharp. And here a mountain. And all this is sharp. Because the scope lens flatten the effect of depth of field and the quantity of light allow all this to be sharp. That's what you remember of the most very impressive image. This sort of composition, you know, like in some Hitchcock film, you know, what the famous glass of milk, you know, sharp in the foreground, you know, things like that, you know, or in Western.
So you use a Super 35 and Ultra, is what you said?
No, in Super 35, I manage to frame landscape. In Super 35, this seems completely sharp. No, you can't do it.
No, it's like
But I managed to make it, to frame it as if it was real scope.
Yeah.
But it was not real scope. Real scope you don't see anymore. Unless if you see old movies.
So for Beau Travail, what did you use?
35, normal 35. But Beau Travail is very easy because you have never a composition where you have a face of a soldier in the foreground and then a mountain behind. It's there is maybe like 3 pure landscape image, you know, sequence. The men are always in the landscape. And in Djibouti, the light is so strong that with a film that, let's say, 50 ASR or 100 ASR, which means that does not open too much to the light, you get a great depth of field. So in Beau Travail, it was so easy. We put the camera on tripod, and you had like, you know, you put a 40 or a 50, let's say 40, because the 50 is already a little bit of a long lens, and it's sharp till the last butterfly. Oh, there is no butterfly in Djibouti, it's too hot, but I mean like the last little piece of rocks, you know, because this amount of light allows you to close and to use a film stock that is already needs how would I say, not
What's it's
and
got
film.
the latitude to be able to show.
No, I think when I was mentioning a 500 ASI that could be taken to 800 ASI, it means that it's what we call a fast film. Immediately it will capture. Instead, in Djibouti, you can take a slow film.
Right.
Because then you can close and get great depths of field. With a fast film, you don't have depths of field.
So if you were to shoot, say, the science fiction film, are there any techniques that you can use with the film in terms of creating a chemical process that would alter the colors? Because with regular photography, you can take, say, slide film, and you develop it as regular film, and all the colors shift, and it makes it very, very vibrant and very, like just surreal. It
I
looks,
think today you can do that also in digital.
oh yeah, completely. But I guess it's just a different of if you wanted a chemical process to happen. I wasn't sure if there's anything that was a correspondent.
I don't know. I have not made up my mind. I think it depends the kind of the film. I think that it could be interesting to shoot on digital on the other hand.
Yeah, so it'd be appropriate.
I think to use film today, you have to know exactly why. You must need good reason. Or you must be sure that you choose this for that reason. Not only to refrain to use a new media, I think it's really interesting to be able to have the choice. Also in digital, you have so many different cameras,
Mm-hmm.
Like the one I use for the little documentary is a very cheap one. And of course now you can use also great lens on a digital camera, so all this moves so fast now. And soon there won't be any theater screening films.
Mm-hmm.
It will be digital screening. So even you can still shoot in film. But you have to know that you have to go to the process of digital in the end to be screened in a theater. But it's not sad. You look sad suddenly.
I don't think it's sad. I just think, because I'm a photographer, still photography, and I shoot with film, and I think what I noticed is that you learn a different process of how you shoot, and that there's a limit to what you can do. And with digital, everything is infinite in the sense of, you can just shoot 500 pictures or
yeah,
something.
I know.
And so then
But you can always make your own rules.
You totally do. I just think it's a skill set.
So you can make your rules with digital too.
That's true. Yeah.
I think it's better to not oppose them, but to compare what you need.
Right. And it's awesome that Kodak made a new film. That's the people are still making the film. It's amazing. It's so. I just find it so amazing that because it becomes this moment. When there's light exposed on this thing,
sure.
It is translated. But yeah, I guess you can.
It's true that the light does not translate the same. Exactly. But in the end, when every film is going to be screened on disc, from disc, on digital, whatever you do at the source, you have to go through the process of digitalize anyway.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with color photography. You can't make a color print now. Even when you see what's considered like a color film and not a print, it's still screened through the machines that they put them in are computers. You still scan the negative and do it that way. And so then it's like, well, I guess they're just doing this toxic work that, it's no longer someone's,
Oh, you can still develop color movies.
Yeah.
You still have the product still exists to develop color
Right.
movies. Huh?
Right.
Even in labs, you can have.
But it's almost like you have to work harder, even with writing a book. To be able to write something on a computer and have so much ease of expression. And you look now, and you've got all these fat books that people write, and they say the same thing over and over and over again. I'm exaggerating a bit, but
No, I think you must consider things differently. You must take what you need, and don't generalize. When you want to film and maybe develop yourself, I think it's great to feel free to choose. Already, the moment all theatre are going to be equipped with digital screening film will be no more. So already this, you can still photograph yourself in your bathroom, but to see a film in a theatre from a film through a ray of light, this will be gone. But you can still film with film. And it's different, of course. Yes?
I was going to talk about something else. I wanted to know what, if you could elaborate a little bit on your rehearsal process. How much rehearsing, because a lot of things in your films obviously seem very natural and spontaneous, if they're, but then everything is also planned in terms of blocking. I don't know, I just was wondering what your thoughts were on how much or how little to rehearse, if it changes for you.
The word rehearsing is slightly disturbing for me because rehearsing means really, in fact, to rehearse a scene means that you block everything, and it's necessary for the focus puller. It's necessary if you have a tracking shot, like in this 35 shots of Rommel. All the film in the corridor are slow tracking shots, so of course if it's not rehearsed, there is no focus, and etc., etc. But I would rehearse the movement, but the minimum of acting, so that normally the first take is also a sort of rehearsal. Because I'm never moved a million times, So when I start making film, I was rehearsing, then I was moved, and I was no more moved when I was shooting, So, selfishly, sometimes actors agree with me. I prefer not to block, yes, but not to rehearse. But it doesn't matter. We have read the script, speak about the clothes, speak about the hair, speak about this, speak about that. So in the end, I think everything is in the knowledge.
And do you sometimes go into a scene knowing exactly what you'd like to go walk away with, or do you enter into sometimes also with questions?
No, I always think I know what I want from the scene, and I'm sure it has to be that and nothing else. But sometimes something went wrong, like a sudden rain, or suddenly something happened during the scene and someone started giggling, or something. There are many incidents, or an actor or an actress decide suddenly to change something, to twist something, and I try not to say cut, to let it go and to see what it. And sometimes I like it, but the idea of starting a scene at random and not knowing what I want in the end, I would be so frightened. I'm not frightened by incidents. I think it's always fun, except when it's a big incident, like the camera stops and you have to change. Things like that happen also, But small incident, really I'm ready, I like it. But at the beginning, I pretend maybe I know what I want. Maybe I pretend. I don't know. I'm sure there is a sort of acting also in directing. I'm sure. Because when I have doubt, it's rare I feel the permission to show it, I'm afraid to show it and then to make it heavy on the people working with me. So there is a bit of acting also in directing. To pretend everything is fine, is alright. Or sometimes to pretend, no, it's sort of, there is acting there, yes, I guess. I'm sure. And it's important because it creates a sort of childish relation between us. When I say childish, of course I'm not. No, but it creates a sort of, it's entertaining also, a director who is acting, great satisfaction when it's not there, or great despair when in fact it's not true. You know what I mean? Actor enjoy that too, and the crew too.
Sense of play.
It's not a sense of play, it's a sense of not tame the film. Because if you, the acting, pretending, I'm so happy, it's perfect, yes, it's great, oh, so beautiful this lake. But let's make another one. All these jokes about film. It's also a sort of weird thing to curse the best, to make sure the film is not bent or tamed. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's terrible. I feel that's like TV, when you know that, you know the result even before it's shot, because it has to be like that, and you have to do your 5 minutes a day, I understand that, because I don't film with big budget, but if I do only 1 minute because the day went wrong, well, I know the next day I will have to do more, but the film is not tamed, it's untamed. It's an image, of course.
So in 35 shots of rum, where a lot of scenes were not a whole lot of dialogue, what did you say to the actors before you went and shot those moments?
But they had their script with those dialogues, and we said, now it's scene 39, and noise ringing at the door, and Lionel says, why take a plate and eat a bite with us before you go, you know?
So they all understood intuitively.
No, we have been reading
Yeah.
before during pre-production when you prepare the clothes, what are you wearing for that scene, why, because you're doing an omelette, ah yes, of course, and he's eating with his coat because he's traveling. All this is by readings, and everyone knows. There is no surprise, huh?
Why didn't you have them sit down to eat? Why did they stand there, the three of them in a line, to eat the meal? When all the other meals, you know, they would...
Because when the daughter and the father were seated, it seemed the kitchen was designed for two. They never, this little table in the middle with the rice cooker was never meant for three. And I thought, they're not going to sit and let him stand, you know, so I thought, if they all stand, the three of them, you understand the kitchen was designed for two. I mean, maybe you don't understand that, but it was in my mind.
Yeah. And it also felt that it was transitory, that he was there to share that meal for a short period of time only, and he was going to go. It wasn't going to be a leisurely meal, it wasn't going to be a big conversation.
Exactly.
Can you talk also more about the hair and clothes? Because the daughter's hair was so important in terms of being up, and in the sexual scene of dancing, he takes it down, and there's just so much around her hair and what she wears that night for going to the Prince concert, rather than the other times, because it's the first time she's actually sexual in her dress. And can you tell us about all that kind of discussion?
How so much belong to the actor, the actress. She is a father, the actress. Her father is Senegalese, and her mother is really from Germany. And this has no incident in the film because I had seen many girls. Anyway, but she interested me because she was in the cinema school. She's becoming a film director, and she was not an actress. But she had something in her, a little bit arrogant, and a little bit unshy, you know. Like we say in France, un enfant gâté, a spoiled kid. She had something of that, you know. And I want a little bit of that in the character. And she is, to me, very good looking, but she could be also a little bit stern, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And then her hair was important because her hair is in between. When it's wet, it's extremely curly, but she could also straighten them, you know, not to have them curly like an African girl, you know.
She could tame her hair.
Yeah. So I thought this thing about her hair was like, do I want to be curly like the young man who comes, the anthropologist,
The perfect
or do I want to prefer straight hair, you know? She's in between. So I thought it was very important that her hair was something to deal with the film. Yeah. So this is something we discussed. And before her, I had chosen another actress who I really liked. Not only I was sure she was the right person, I almost saw her when I wrote the script. And she was chosen to be part of the National Theatre. And by the time we were ready to shoot, she was rehearsing Penthesilea. You know Penthesilea? Penthesilea is a play by Kleist, a German. And it's Penthesilea. It's a drama. You never heard about that? It's Kleist. It's his most famous play, and it's about the Amazon after Trojan War. One of the queen of the Amazon fell in love with Achilles.
Achilles, okay.
And the fight, and I mean, anyway, I don't want to tell you the story of the play because to read it, it's so strong. Anyway, so this young actress was hired by the National Theatre, and she has to be Penthesilea, the main part. And I told her I will make it possible with you and the National Theatre so that you can rehearse and be in the film and not... you pan on me?
I did.
Oh.
I can't help it. Part of my life.
I prefer you don't
Okay.
move the camera, so
I will
won't
just make
have
it
to
wider. Sure.
be aware of what I'm doing. I wanted her to be very free when she was acting, playing. So I told her maybe I will manage to do the film while you rehearse so that we can have time. And then she had very straightened hair. And I said, oh, you had already straightened your hair because of the part of Penthesilea? She said, no, because of me. I choose to have straight hair. And then she dyed her hair a little bit, not blonde, but a little bit. So I said, this is for Penthesilea, because Penthesilea is in a German play, Penthesilea, Amazon from Middle Orient, but suddenly I thought she wanted to be more German. She's a black girl. So she said, no, it's for me. I said, but look, I have to tell you something. Did your director, how the director wants you in Penthesilea? So I said, he said nothing because I will wear a helmet most of the time. And I said, so he doesn't want you to be straight blonde hair? She said, no. I said, so maybe you can stop dyeing your, make your hair blonde, stop straight, and then cut them so that you got curly hair again. And she started crying. And she left the room, she called her agent, and she said, I torture her. So I give her an appointment in a bar, and I said, what did you say? I torture you. She said, but you choose me and suddenly you speak only about my hair. But I say, look, it's important. If you become blonde like that with straight hair, it will mean something in the film. It will mean something very important. So I have to discuss that with you, because otherwise the character will be different, you know. She says, no, you choose me, so I can be blonde, I can be... I said, well, in that story, I think it matters a little bit. Because the mother is German, and the father is Caribbean, so I think you must understand that for the character, it matters a little bit. And I think it's not a torture. It's really a matter of what you want to be yourself. Is it as an actress that you want to have straight blonde hair, or as a person, you know? And then after that I met Mati, but the hair thing was right at the beginning something important in the film. And this young actress, she's in the National Theatre, still I met her sometime, and she never returns to curly black hair. She has always strange red hair with plaits, and you know, so I think that there is a problem of her being half white, half black, not to choose really what she wants, or to have chosen something and not being able to change it. I don't know, I think it matters a lot. If you see a black woman on TV for the news, or it's very rare that they have the Angela Davis, that most of them have flat hair, you know. So if you consider hair and not only the color of the skin, it says a lot about people also, I think.
Coming from that answer, I was just wondering about like actors and what happens when an actor has a strong opinion. Because I've been an actress in the theater for a long time, and in the theater we were always told, if you want to cut your hair, you need to talk to your director first, because that's essential. They need to know if you want to change your appearance. So it's kind of like surprising that a theater actress would not remember ever hearing that. But in some cases also, sometimes as a performer, you have a really strong opinion about something, anything.
Sure.
And how does that contribute to the process? Because sometimes it also feels like directors.
But it's very important.
Yeah, like,
It's very important. If that actress I mentioned would have told me, look, I feel, I need that this character doesn't like a black curly hair. I want her to every morning flatten her hair, and I would have said, you see that? I would have considered, and maybe I would have agreed. What I was afraid is to have someone afraid of something. Afraid of something where she had no choice, actually. Now, if an actress tell me, or an actor tell me, I want to cut my hair very short for this character, it's important for me, what do you think? We will consider, if it's important, I will be very happy to agree on that. Because me, myself, I remember a moment in my life, I needed to cut my hair, you know. So of course, a character should be approached by the way he wears his clothes, by the way she, for instance, put or not makeup, you know? Things like that are very important, but for me it's not just I draw the line and you have to do it. No. These details are part of the rehearsal for the character. If you decide, like in white material, I told Isabel, do me a favor, accept to be no makeup. She said, okay. Because I said, makeup under the heat, I want your skin to be naked. She said, okay. Then she said, can I dye my lashes because she has very blonde lashes? I said, no. And then, but then in the end, when she put the lipstick on, because she has no makeup before, when she put that little lipstick on, it makes her so fragile, you know, if you've seen the film. It makes her afraid, I don't know. She wants to be stronger. So I think all these things are very important. And of course, an actor doesn't have to say yes to everything. No? I respect that.
But it was the part about her not feeling comfortable with her actual self. And
I think she spoke about the character, but in fact she was speaking about herself, you know. And I thought it was, for me then, a little bit difficult to believe in her as a character, because then the character was going to be very close to her. It's good when you speak to an actor in the evening, you have a beer with the actor, and you know you're not speaking to the character. Because if for 2 or 3 months you speak to actor or actress, and in the same time you know you're speaking to the character, it's become insane.
I thought it was really interesting in the film of Jean Denis, and the entire time Jean-Christophe, he took almost this passive, like, animal role to Jean Denis when they were in the
Like
streets
a dog.
together. But then when he came on the film at the end to say his impression, it was all of a sudden I recognized the actor from 35 Runs and from the, just as in a more presence setting, right? And it was just like, and it was so striking, the posture, I guess, more than anything. And
I loved him in 35 Rooms. I actually thought that as a possible boyfriend for Josephine, he was kind of a better boyfriend because he had like a lot more masculinity and like, you know, animal heat, but she didn't like him. Maybe she's afraid
to be taken too far away from a nest.
Yeah. Just didn't really want to go there. That's a great
And the devotion from the other guy was certain for her. She knew he was devoted to her, whereas this guy could have played her or whatever it could have been. She knew she had the security and love from him, no matter what.
Of course, yeah.
Oh, that's true. The other guy, Ruben, looked really devoted. You know, he brought flowers, but
Flowers, the one
Yeah,
he really got the devotion.
yeah, the phone number. Okay, I think I can bring. I'm a sucker. Ooh, flowers. Nice boy. He knows what to do.
What about title design? There's a consistency in your titles for each film, and there's an equality that happens because of the design of the credits for the main actors in terms of the names all coming up and one illuminating and things like that. Can you talk about your choices in terms of the design of your titles and credits?
It's strange titles because I wish always to have more money for the title. It comes at the end when the budget is gone, so I try always to make it in a certain way for the film, not for me. So I don't know, I thought if I put all those names on the tracks, so I thought I would use the noise of the tracks to have one name appear and then one fade away and one a sort of small hypnotic rhythm of being in driving the train, you know. Nothing special and of course nothing very expensive. No, it's true, you know. I have always ideas for titles, you know, but at the end it costs so much, you know. Maybe less when you shoot on HD, but still yes, it costs a lot. There was a time where there was in the budget, a real budget for the credit, you know. It's not the case today in the French economy. Maybe in Hollywood still, but in the French economy, no. Like I think, let's say, Peter Sellers and the Pink Panther, let's imagine something like that. The cost of it? No. Don't think so.
So does the French government actually fund a lot of the film projects, or like for fundraising?
No, French government doesn't fund films.
No, I mean, I guess not.
Not at all. This is really a sort of thing I've heard here many times, but it's absolutely not like that. There is a law. After the war in 1946, Europe was mostly destroyed. Yeah? So the country that has the biggest studio was Germany, but there was no more walls in Germany. Some in Italy, but Italy was down on his knee, and France too. So I guess the law that was decided, sort of brilliant invention. Someone thought that maybe part of the recovery after a war was not only food and clothes and roof, but was also cultural. And they invent a center, national center of cinema, that was not using the money of the government, but that was going to perceive a percentage on each ticket sold in theaters. A small 1%, you know, on each ticket. And this money will be like kept for number one, the producer of a film who have made a lot of entries, because he will have them participate a lot to the saving of the money, because he had sold a lot of tickets. So part of this money will be returned to him only for a film, not to buy a house. Let's say he makes now a new film. He knows he has this money for him collected from the ticket. But if you make a film that makes not so many entries, so many tickets selling, so you have little spare money, not much, but the center of cinema keep all the money of all the films together. Huh? And a producer that makes big success doesn't make 3 films in a row immediately. The money is working in a bank. So if you want, only if you want, if you don't want, you don't. You give your script to be read by a commission of people that are changed every 6 months. And those people are, one is a scriptwriter, one is a producer, one is a distributor, one is a film director. You know, these people read scripts and they decide if this script, this scenario will be helped. And it will be helped by some money that have been kept for producers. Not to buy a car or a house or whatever. Not even to pay an actor. This money is given only when you can prove your budget is solid and you are going to pay the technician and the actor. If you give a budget, let's say, from your script you will get 1 million euros. No, impossible. 500,000 euros. Then the money will get to your producer only when the producer can show how he's financing the film completely, how he's going to pay the people, you know, etc., etc. Then he will get the money. So it's not the money from the French government, it's the money from the cinema itself. So when I hear French cinema is founded by the French government, I say, normally I say, fuck you.
I've never heard. I was just
because it's a fake story, and it's a fake story because when the global stuff arrived in Europe, English and American people were furious because of this law, because it helped so much French cinema, you know, as opposed to many countries. And they said it's not possible according to the globalization law, the law of commerce, it's not possible. And we said no, because it's not funding, it's not government money, it's a way to protect a country culture. It's not the government who is funding. And so few countries like Belgium, Portugal, Spain, few countries now adopt this system, you know. South Korea too. Because when you're poor and you have nothing, it's good to invent something like that, you know. But it's not, well, I mean, I think it's a good thing. Mm. So if you look in the European laws, you will see it's called l'exception culturelle. And it's France, because it was voted as an exception culturelle. Cultural exception. Which is funny. Because I wish it was not an exception, it would be for everybody.
When you audition after...
This exists also, I think, in Israel now. Yeah.
That's why there are a lot of new Israeli movies, films that are really fantastic and
Yeah.
sophisticated.
No, because it gives opportunity to people who don't belong to film company, you know. It changed it's like changing the water of the swimming pool like every week, you know. It's not.
How do people get selected to be on the commission since it changes every 6 months? Does like the group as a whole?
I've been twice, for instance, you know, because who is not shooting, who is not pregnant, who is not editing, you know, who is have time.
So it's really the peers.
To read a lot of script, to be very serious about the job, because it's very, very a big responsibility, you know.
How many scripts would you have at the same time to choose?
30 or 40, you know.
And how many would get funded at any of the?
Depends.
Depends on the
Sometimes only 2 or 3, sometimes 6, and then the time after there will be less, you know, because we have an amount we cannot suddenly give everything on once, you know. We have to save it for all the year.
Along those lines, I have a question. I don't know if you can answer it, but because I've been very inspired by your style of filmmaking, and also the fact that it's the balance between narrative and non-linear narrative, and I've gotten into an interesting situation where a lot of the festivals turn my films away because they say it's not narrative enough. And then when I go to the experimental film festivals, I say it's not experimental enough. It's too narrative.
I think this is a big thing, and I was wishing we might have a day to discuss what is narration, what is non-narrative, and what is narrative. Because if I give you an answer now, it will be a short answer, and I consider this is really a day, because the question of narration now is in the core of every film, even in Hollywood, even in TV work, you know. It's really the center of a lot of things, you know. And I think, not to speak about myself, but you can look at some TV things very famous, like suddenly 3 years ago, a lot of TV serial decided to use flash forward. Mm-hmm. It was like a shock, you know. Flash forward exists, cinema exists, you know. But suddenly, even for TV, you could use flash forward, you know. So I think if we start with narration, let's spend the day with it, because it's so interesting. The question people raise, the people who hate Tree of Life, the people who like Tree of Life, it's not filmmaking, it's what is narration actually today, like what we speak about the Israeli film, you know. It has nothing to do with experimental or this and that. That's the word people use to excuse themselves, you know. Narration is a very important subject to discuss, I think, really. No, I think because it needs a lot of, for me, it's the main thing, you know. What is non-narrative? What is narrative? What is experimental? We understand all of us, but if you start to go deep into the narration or non-narration thing, it's not one answer to one question. It needs a little bit more, I think. So maybe tomorrow, few Q&A about Friday night if you want, few questions, but it could lead us very easily to the narration and non-narrative and narrative, because I think this is really the most important thing these days. This year, in Cannes, Tree of Life won. The year before, Uncle Boomy won. I wonder who think Uncle Boomy is ask the people, what is this film, you know? There is a narration in Uncle Boomy, but and it's not an experimental film either, you know. So I think this is really the real subject of today. I mean, of filmmaking.
Well, what would be a non-narrative film, like a poster?
Save that for tomorrow.
Okay. Tonight
Because
are we
it's a
watching
long
something?
answer.
Yeah. Okay. Are we watching something tonight?
Yeah, Friday
If you
night.
want to watch.
Okay.
But me, I will come to check the sound at the beginning. But I
Okay.
won't. I don't want to watch it.
Okay.
So
That's fine.
I can't stand that. Yesterday I stayed because Jean-Luc was there. I didn't
Right.
want to be, and also because it was from internet, and I was afraid something might happen horrible. The film stopped or whatever. So the image was so ugly, the sound was so horrible. So it was like painful.
Funny enough, like I saw that movie twice now, and I didn't know that she got married until we were talking about it tonight. Like I was so on this, like I think I was caught up with Renee's death, and
She's not getting married, she's getting prepared. She's putting a dress on, her hair. You
right,
don't see her married in the church.
right, I know, but with the third, I mean, it was just, I just thought it was very funny because when it came in and I heard you say that, and when she got married, and I was like, because I remember thinking that the clothing was very odd for a funeral. It was sort of festive because I was assuming it was Renee's funeral, and that was when he was doing the shots
really
in the
know.
room finally, and that it was, and I guess part of it was because of Jean-Luc's comment that there wasn't as much like between her and Noé.
Jean-Luc said something immediately. He said, when you see the little white gloves,
Right.
you know there is going to be a wedding.
Well,
And it's fun because,
the lilies.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it seems so obvious to me now after the fact, which is why it's just so funny. This is sort of a narration thing, because you fill in the blanks sometimes without even thinking, without even realizing it, you know, and then you tell yourself the story that you see or you know or something like that, right? And I guess it was just.
well, me, I don't think I do so a lot of. I'm not a good example maybe, but I seem to speak about what is narration, what is non-narrative, all this thing you write, I think is really interesting, and especially today.
Yeah, I found myself kind of
Because the more films are made today by young people who comes from different media, the rules are really exploded, you know.
Yeah, I've noticed that I'm a lot more tolerant in what I think narrative is. You know, I can see something and I can think that's narrative. I can see something else and find that narrative. But I found
You
that
have to
other
keep for
people-
tomorrow that word tolerant.
or
Because
that's
no,
not
you have to keep it because this is exactly what cinema is an industry, was made by an industry in a studio, and the word tolerance is exactly what it's about. So the more you have small unit of filmmakers, tolerance is spread all over. Where is the big tycoon to say this is not correct, this is should, this ending is no good, blah blah blah. No, keep words like that, tolerant. Very interesting, very opening, wide-eyed. Because it has to do with tolerance. Because narrative, in a certain way, is also to put everything in order. So if everything is not in order, like let's say flash forward, and if you are a bit intolerant, you know, order and tolerance that goes together. Huh? me, I don't think narration is to put it in order. But for, in a way, there is a demand for order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then people get really upset pretty easily.
Yeah, but save that in your mind to really think about it, because it opened so many doors, you know. And keep it for yourself, not for people who do know you, me, myself. Sometimes I'm stuck, you know. Because it will be crazy to speak about narration and tolerance just to pretend we are tolerant, open to everything, and we are going to speak about the stupid people in Hollywood, you know. No. Let's be very part of it, you know, because me, I'm very intolerant also sometimes, you know. So it's very important to be clear about that, I think. And that's why in some countries censorship is not on things like sex or whatever. It's also on the narration, you know, because it's law and order. So I think it's interesting. If you agree.
Yeah.